to carry on. Open your heart, set your mind at ease. Live your life and you'll be free. We're gonna rise, rise, rise. Keep on rising, rise, rise, rise. Keep on rising,
Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the Toon review for this morning's press conference reaction with myself, Paul, and of course, I'm joined by my old mucker, Billy Bob. Hope you're all doing well on this Friday morning. As usual, if you do enjoy today's show, please hit the thumbs up. It's very important for our channel that we keep those coming in, and please do subscribe if you are new and you like what you see. And make sure you hit that notification bell so you never miss an upload or a live show. Of course, you can support the channel in two ways: by joining the membership, which is the join button just underneath me and Billy, and of course super chats. That's the $sign under the live comments, and that will guarantee your comment to be read out on the show. And of course, the big one is keep voting for us in the Football Content Awards, guys. It is very important we get your votes in. The link is pinned at the top of the description. Just click on it, head to Best Podcast, click down the drop-down box on Premier League and select the Toon review. Or you can go onto Twitter at the FCAs and then put that I am voting for at the Toon review. And that will count as a vote towards us as well. Good morning, Billy.
Good morning, and good morning to all you out in viewerland.
And of course, it's Happy EA 25 Day, Billy. So I haven't downloaded mine yet. Just come later on in the post, and no doubt I'll suffer more rage. We are going to start a gaming channel, by the way, guys. It will happen. I know a lot of people have been asking us to do career modes and things like that. I need to get my blood pressure at the right sort of level before I start broadcasting that kind of thing on our gaming channel, but that will start. Billy is probably a lot better than me at it, but we will see. We will see in the future, of course. But it is all about the presser this morning. And Billy, have you watched it?
Yes, I saw the vast majority of it. I think I missed the first 30 seconds.
Yeah, interesting questions fired at him today. Again, you know, I think it was Jordan Cronin who asked him some very good questions that we really wanted to know. But we'll cover it all because I've made lots of notes, Billy. I actually sat and watched it and made notes, thinking, yeah, we've got a live show to cover this morning, so I'll make notes instead of going off just the odd quote off the internet. So obviously, he was first asked about the injuries, Billy, and he said there's no fresh injuries. However, Alexander Isak is once again a doubt for the game. He hasn't trained this week because, well, Eddie went on to say later on in the press conference, it's actually a broken toe. And he had an injection in it last week before the Fulham game, got through the game, but it was stiffening up and very painful afterwards. He hasn't trained at all this week. So all he said was, we'll see what happens today.
I don't think he'll play tomorrow, if I'm perfectly honest.
No, I don't either. I don't think he was very optimistic, was he?
No, and it was weird. He said the scans showed everything was fine, and then he said he had a broken toe. I mean, obviously, a scan showed isn't fine, then, is it? It's a broken toe.
Yeah,
an X-ray revealed that, and yeah, it's bizarre that he had an injection last week and it went out 10 minutes towards the end. However, I'll say it went out 10 minutes before the start because he did absolutely nothing last week. I don't think he hit the ball hardly.
I mean, this is the thing, isn't it? We were talking about players last season playing with injuries and sort of hoping that would be eradicated this season. But obviously, you know, they felt like a broken toe. He can play. Eddie said he can play with a broken toe. You know, but it just became after the game became very painful and stiffened up. So, listen, the fact that he hasn't trained all week isn't exactly the great preparation to go into a game against Manchester City tomorrow.
listen, the fact he said he can play as long as he can tolerate the pain, I don't think that's a reasonable answer, I've got to say.
No.
Especially with Alexander Isak's physical abilities. He doesn't like a physical challenge, does he?
Correct.
He's more about the silkiness and the flair and the technique and technical parts of the game. I don't think so. I'm not satisfied with that answer, and I don't think he should have played last week. I really don't.
No. So he is a doubt, and he went on to talk about Anthony Gordon later on, which we'll cover. But it looks for me like Gordon, or he is planning on Anthony Gordon playing through the middle tomorrow as a striker.
I think so.
Which is a little bit. I don't know, but we'll come on to that. The only other guy that will be missing tomorrow, Billy, is Matt Targett. Now, this is one of the strangest reasons I have ever seen for a player missing a football game. He's had a flare-up of eczema. Now, I mean, I've seen quite a few people react to this comment on social media, and in all the years I've followed football, Billy, I have never known somebody to miss a game through a flare-up of eczema. Now, I know, listen, my kids have suffered from eczema. It's awful. It is awful when it flares up. It definitely is. But you would think in this day and age with the medical system that Newcastle United have, it's a very strange reason to be missing from a football squad.
Yeah, I mean, we all thought it was a flaky defender, but we didn't think it was to that extent, did we?
Yeah.
A bit of Calabon lotion, a bit of Sudocrem or something like that surely can play with bloody eczema. I mean, I know it's not a nice thing. However, it's more of I know it itches a bit, but it's hardly a broken toe, for instance, is it? The fact you play with a broken toe and someone can't play with eczema, that's odd to me, I've got to say.
Yeah, very, very strange. He wasn't at all asked about Callum Wilson this morning. It's pointless, really. If Callum's not going to be there till he's already stated after the international break, so he's not going to be asked about it. But I don't think missing Matt Targett is a major issue. I know Eddie Howe seems to talk about him in every press conference, but for me, no, I'm not particularly too fussed about Matt Targett. When was the last time we saw Matt Targett? I mean, he's made a couple of cameos, but he's not one of the main players anyway.
100K a week.
To be fair.
Not
Yeah,
sure
well, the wages would dictate that. Yeah, the wages would say otherwise, but obviously we know as fans, and I think many of the journalists know. To coin a phrase says it sounds daft, but my wife nearly passed away from it. You can get infections, absolutely, and we did state, it is horrible, absolutely. But this is professional football, and if he's had a flare up, then fair enough. But I don't get the impression from Eddie Howe that it's anything, like he's in hospital or anything like that. He's had a flare up, and I know how serious eczema can be at times, but let's be fair. Like I said, the medical facilities, you would think that they would have something there to. But then again, I mean, he's not available, but I don't think it makes a massive bit of difference whether he was available or not. He wouldn't be in the starting 11 anyway. No. So yeah. So no fresh injuries apart from Alexander Isak. Just will probably miss the game. I mean, I don't see him performing with a broken toe, especially when we need him at his sharpest. If he has, just leave him out. There's loads of time left in the season now. Don't risk him. Man City, God knows what's going to happen anyway, but it would be probably wiser just to rest it, Billy, I would have thought. Yeah,
you'd think so. Can you really see Alexander Isak getting any change out of Guardiola and Akanji or Diaz? Probably not. I think the pace of Gordon might be a plus for us actually through the middle tomorrow, if I've got to say. As long as we play from in the right way, which is the question, of course.
Now, a lot of questions aimed at Eddie this morning about the Fulham performance, of course. And I think he was very honest. He gave a very honest opinion of the game, Billy, because normally he comes out and says, there was elements of good things in it, et cetera, but he didn't say anything like that this morning. He said that they took a lot away from it, and honest conversations have been had. Now, we said earlier in the week that we expect a lot to be said behind closed doors regarding the way the players were playing, Eddie himself. So a lot of honest conversations. Obviously, didn't go further into that because that's obviously private. But do you think that's a good thing that honest conversations were had? Because I certainly do. And they needed to be had given that Fulham performance.
Yeah, I think honest conversations to me translates as teacups were thrown. I mean, he
Yeah.
sounds like he's been very vociferous in his disdain at the performance last week, and quite rightly.
Mhm.
However, some of the blame has to fall at his door, and I think he said that himself with his team selection. He felt Joe Willett was a bad selection. I'm not sure Joe Willett was a bad selection, but certainly the lack of Sandro Tonali was a bad selection. So I mean, an all-round talking to from all of them. Yeah, I guess it can only be good. And the likes of Bruno, the likes of Joe Linton, the likes of Isaac, Gordon, all those have got to step up to the plate. We can't afford to have those four as passengers in the side alongside the rest of the team who've been passengers.
Well, for me, Billy, if when he says about honest conversations, I would hope that some of the players themselves have took it upon them to have honest conversations in that dressing room, even when Eddie's not there. The leadership group coming in and sitting down before Eddie's even entered the dressing room and had conversations between themselves saying, look, lads, this was really not good enough. We need to pull our fingers out. Whatever's going on or had gone on, we need to, that's gone now. The Fulham game's gone. We can't do anything about it. What we can do is do something about the next game, which is a huge one against Manchester City. And Eddie mentioned the fans and how we will play our part. Yes, there's no doubt about that. The fans will play a part, but the players have got to play their part in keeping the fans in the game.
Yeah, 100%. Certainly at St James's Park. I mean, that's all about home advantage, isn't it? Going away from home. I know we take a massive support with us, but it's a different kettle of fish away from home. And that's for the kind of teacup throwing. That's the kind of, honest conversations, teacup throwing, whatever you want to call it. If it was honest conversations, fine, because the teacup throwing doesn't work if you keep on doing it. And given the fact we've played the same in every game this year so far, i.e. nowhere near our standards.
Yeah, how many teacups have been thrown?
If you throw teacups every week, you become immune to it, don't you?
Yeah.
So it has no effect.
Yeah, absolutely. And look, I think I'm seeing comments coming in saying it's all right having the honest conversations, but they have to react on them, and we have to see a reaction. And that's exactly right. Talk is cheap when it comes to saying things before a game. If you go out on the match day and then you play exactly the same as you did the previous game, then those honest conversations or whatever becomes a laughing stock. Because if you've had honest conversations and things have been said which needed to be said, and then you go out and don't perform, then you then question what exactly is going on in the dressing room. So exactly. I'm pleased that he's come out and said about the honest conversations. Now it's time to react on those. And, he said that the players know they weren't good enough. I think that's a given, because if any of those players thought that it was a good performance last week, then I question them. He senses the players want to respond and they've learned from it. Now, I don't think you should even sense that the players want to respond. I think that they have to respond. They can't play a game like that and then not want to respond to it.
And if they don't respond, then that question is going to be asked again, isn't it? Has Eddie Howe lost the dressing room? Because if he's having these conversations week in, week out, and nothing's improving, then you've got to say that maybe he has lost the dressing room. And it's a strange time to be saying it before we play Manchester City. I would have thought it'd put that off a few days until at least the Wimbledon game. Yeah. So we can kind of say, well, yeah, we've had a response there. We went to Man City at home. It's tough. If we have a performance tomorrow and get beat, then it's not so bad. We've got to have the performance. So it's got to be fight. We've had fight in a few games, to be fair. That's all we've had. The Southampton game, the Wolves game.
We have shown fight. And I think that's one thing we've seen this season. But I think
there's no style or substance to our play.
No,
that's the certain thing for me.
And I think a lot of people are worried, Billy, at the sort of attitude of the players or questioning them, which was brought up a bit later on in the conference. But he said a real refocus on everything this week, because he was asked about obviously the Wimbledon game being cancelled, and he said it's probably good for the team that the game was cancelled because we've had a week of training. And able to have those conversations and things like that. Whereas if the game had gone ahead, obviously they would have been focused on a game. They wouldn't have had that, conversations, etc. So it's probably a good thing. And talking about the game tomorrow, he said that Rodri being out for Manchester City doesn't change anything for Newcastle United, because We basically have to go and play our own game. We can't rely on anything to do with Manchester City, even if Rodri and De Bruyne aren't there. He did mention that, they've got a whole host of other players that can come in and play just as well.
Yeah, the depth of their squad's unbelievable, isn't it? They can still play Kovacic, Gundogan, Foden, Nunes. There's lots of them, isn't there? Lots of midfield depth, lots of depth all over the squad, and that's the beauty of having such a club that's been able to spend money over the years. And we're nowhere near that level yet, as he also said. So yeah, whoever they play in the midfield is going to be hard for us. We're going to have to perform above our best this season so far, back to our levels of 2 seasons ago, if we have to compete with them and try and get result out of the game.
Absolutely. He was asked about the harmony in midfield as well, Billy, and this is where I kind of questioned it, his answer to it, because it's been clear to a lot of us fans that when we've seen Newcastle play this season, and we mentioned this in the preview show last night, that there is somehow a problem in midfield and a gap between the midfield and the defence. Now, Eddie said that he doesn't think there's a problem there, and that wasn't why we lost to Fulham. It kind of was, though, wasn't it? I mean, the goals that we saw, Smith Rowe running the show in the first half, coming through the middle, the midfield just wasn't in the game. And he then went on to say, obviously, there was other areas of the pitch that were wrong as well, but he didn't think the midfield was a major problem, which I kind of sort of looked up at the screen. I thought, Eddie, really? No problem with the midfield?
Yeah, it's not the first time either, is it? Let's be honest. Unless he's thrown all of the crap at the defence's door. He was wrong in saying that. I thought the midfield was definitely at fault because there was no discipline in them. They were either all going forward and leaving no one at the back, just a massive gap between them and the defence, which Emil Smith Rowe capitalised on, thrived on it. Many times. Yeah, it was a strange thing for him to say.
But on a positive side of it, Billy, he did say that we have to be brave with the ball tomorrow and be an attacking force. So that says to me that we're not going to sit and park the bus, which, I think it was you that said last night on the show that it's pointless park the bus against Manchester City because there's no such thing. They will find a way through. And Arsenal did that in the second half last week, almost got through, but City just find a way. And of course, 11v11 is a very different story. But do you think we will see Newcastle go out there and be brave tomorrow and attack?
I think we have to be, otherwise we'll to the slaughter. I think if we just sit back and allow Man City to do as what they want when they want, they're going to score a hatful of goals. They've got the most lethal striker in world football. They've got creative players all over that pitch, whether it be Doku, Grealish, Foden, Bernardo Silva. Call it what you like. There's that many of them that they can create problems for us. Yeah, if we just sit back and allow them to do what they want to us, we're in trouble. We've got to have some kind of deterrent, and that means attacking them early doors. I think straight from the get go, and not just get from the get go. Maintain it, and give them something to be scared of. Because if we don't, we're going to get our asses kicked big time.
So if he's going attacking tomorrow, Billy, does that mean Livramento and Hall start the game to push us forward?
Yeah, I would say so. Definitely Hall, maybe Trippier. Trippier's a good attacking threat as well. So, but certainly Hall ahead of Kelly. Maybe Kelly instead of Burn. Who knows? Although we know that Dan Bird's first name on the team sheet. So maybe I'm being ridiculous, sir.
He did say that he was asked about the performances this season, and obviously that tomorrow was such a huge game, and the performance can't really be like what we've played already. And he did say that, we'll take what we've done so far this season because obviously we've got the points on the board, but now is the time to shine. So at least he's admitting, Billy. I mean, he has come out in a few press conferences and said, there was some good things about it and things like that. But I think he did come out today and say he knows that the performances are well short, because he then went on to say that some people in the team need to step up, which is a big statement, which is obviously going back to the honest conversations. Yeah,
absolutely. And I think we all know who them players are. It's the main characters of the team. The captain for one. I think Anthony Gordon's another one. Joe Linton's certainly one. I don't think he'll be too concerned at the defence because they've been on under pressure, and they've done the best really. Fabian Schär aside, I mean, sometimes he has attitude issues, but effort's not a fault with the defence. But certainly the players in front of them, and even he's to a certain extent, even with a broken toe, I think you're going to want a response from them.
Well, he was poor before he broke his toe, wasn't he? He hasn't been at it this season. Did say that he was a big admirer of Haaland. He loves his appetite for scoring goals and things like that. And he also admitted that he's impossible to keep quiet. You cannot keep Erling Haaland quiet, but you can manage him. And to be fair, Billy, we've seen that a few times when Newcastle have played Manchester City. Botman did it really well. Jamal Lascelles did it really well. I think the season before last, we commented on how well he kept Haaland out of the game. So the problem is, I think with Manchester City, and I hope that we don't do this tomorrow, is put too much emphasis on Haaland and forget the rest of the talent that they've got in the team. If we focus on Haaland and take our eye off other players, that's where Man City can hurt you as well. I'm
not sure it's so much Haaland as cutting his supply chain off. If you can cut his supply chain off, then I don't think Haaland's as effective as a player.
Yeah.
He's one of these players that if he tries to create himself, he can do it occasionally, but if you give him service, he's lethal. I think if you can cut off his supply chain, then we have a much better chance of getting a result. And that means the midfield have all got to be at it, and so have the fullbacks.
Now, he was asked about Sandro Tonali about the game tomorrow, Billy, and I was glad that he was asked this question because we all want to know what's going on, basically, don't we? So he was asked about Tonali and playing for Italy, playing the 2 games, and what he thought about him being involved in those 2 games. Was it difficult when he came back? Now, he did say he was mentally and physically tired, but he then went on to say, but so are other players, especially the players who play, further afield, hence, Bruno, etc. But, of course, Bruno was put back straight in the team. Tonali's been on the bench. And then he said that he has the big game experience. He's used to Milan derbies and playing a pivotal role for the Italian national side. So he is knocking at the door to start. So what did you take from that? I mean, is that an indication that he's going to play, or do you think he's knocking at the door, but he's not quite there yet?
I mean, knocking at the door, he should be through the door and out the back door and running down the garden over the fence.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, it's ridiculous that he hasn't started yet. But he did explain it to a certain extent that he came back from the internationals mentally and physically fatigued. And I guess you've got to expect that after a year out with just a few cameo appearances and the game against Forest where he started.
Well, we can understand that maybe against Wolves, but not Fulham.
Yes,
when Wolves, he's had a week to recover, a week of training.
100%. Yeah, and he should definitely start against Fulham. That's a manager mistake in my opinion, and he should start tomorrow. And if he doesn't, again, I think it'd be a manager mistake unless we get a result out of it. Which, without the best players playing, I don't see how we can.
Yeah, he did say that he had no issues with Tonali playing 2 full 90 minutes. For Italy, he said that when he goes with it, away with Italy, that's the manager's decision. If he wants to play Tonali in those big games, because let's face it, Italy haven't been great over the last few years, and Tonali coming back is a massive boost for them. But he said that he was asked the question saying, what does Tonali have to do to get in the starting lineup? And he basically turned around and said, train well and play well when you're on the pitch and you'll get into the team. So there you go. It's a little bit of
and you put that
skullduggery from Eddie there.
You put that same sentence into how Sean Longstaff played for 6 months of last season. That's not how we work with him.
Or the fact that some, the likes of Joe Linton, etc., haven't played well so far this season. But to be fair to Eddie, later in the press conference, he did say at the stage where we're at now, some very difficult decisions are going to be made. So I get the impression that we are going to see changes tomorrow, Billy. He did say, obviously he mentioned about the team having to step up again. He also said that he does know his best 11. If someone gave him a piece of paper, he would be able to write his best 11 now. But it also depends on how those players are playing and who the opposition is.
Yeah, but he also said that certain players for certain games would come into that best 11. So I could write the best 11 down. We all could, but it's how you play them, isn't it? It's where you play them and how you play them. last Saturday's team wasn't the best 11 because there was no balance to it. You had 2 left-sided 8s, no right-sided 8s. You know, when you go back to his previous team selection, and you think, well, he didn't know his best 11 because if he didn't know it, then Sandro Tonali would be playing, wouldn't he?
Yeah. Look, he kind of says one thing and says another sometimes in the press conferences, and but look, some of the answers he gave this morning I was pleased with, but you know, the problem is how truthful he's been in these press conferences, because you know, he hasn't really. He doesn't like to give too much away, does he? Which is fair enough, because you don't want to give the opposition manager any clues as to how you're going to play. But he did say that, you know, Pep himself, he has no idea how Pep's going to set his team up tomorrow. It's just waiting until you see the team lineups at quarter. Well, tomorrow it'll be what, 12:30 kickoff, so the teams will be out at 11:15.
Yeah.
So, you know, it's very early on in the morning to get the teams through, but you can't make any changes after that. So it's. But then he talked about formations as well, and said that formations don't really mean anything these days because there's so many one-to-one challenges on the pitch.
Yeah, you tweak them in game, and we've never noticed that. I mean, you know, we watched a lot of football. I've been watching it for bloody half a century. You've been watching it for nigh on that.
Yeah.
You know, we know what we're talking about when we're talking about formations on the pitch, what we see.
Yeah.
And for him to kind of try and blind us with science, saying, I felt was a bit off as well, because we watch where players go, we watch what they're doing and where they're doing it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think pressmen know that as well. But yeah, he's the manager. He can say what he likes at his press conference. But to kind of try and blind us with science, to me, was a bit iffy, I've got to say.
Joe Bentley's asking if you've been on FIFA yet, Billy. No, he hasn't. It's coming in the post.
I've been on the trial. I've been on the 10 hours trial earlier in the week.
Yeah. What's that? Paul, I just searched Newcastle United on YouTube and sorted by download time. This show didn't appear in the search results. I don't understand why your podcast didn't appear. Well, I mean, it depends. I don't know. Sometimes, you know, I'll put the Toon review into Apple Podcasts, for instance, and as soon as I type in the Toon review is second in the list. So, you know, it depends on what day and how the algorithm's running, I guess. But you know, we are doing very well, so we must be appearing in some people's search results. Trolls, thank you for your super chat. If Howe starts longing over Tonali, how out? Interesting. I get the feeling Tonali's going to start. There was one question, Billy, that tried to trip him up. Was the conversation that was had on the overlap, the stick to football, which I love watching. I think it's brilliant, and you get to see the real people's personalities on there, which is why I've kind of very much grown to actually love Roy Keane. I think he's fantastic. He's got a brilliant sense of humor, and he seems like an all-round nice bloke, actually. But they come across really well on there. And, you know, I don't mind them talking about Eddie Howe, because we've all done it ourselves at Newcastle, you know, especially about the England job. I think the media have made it sound worse than what Gary Neville actually said. Gary Neville said that he needs to take... he needs to think about himself. And basically what we were saying as well is he's got to look at that. You know, if he did get offered the England job, he's got to look at the players that are available for England now to what might be available in 5-10 years' time if he was offered the job, and think, right, can I win anything with England? He's got to put himself first. And I agree with that. I don't have a problem with what Gary Neville said. It's not he's trying to push Eddie Howe out. They were talking about exactly what we've spoken about on this show and what's going on in the background. But apparently that's all been resolved now. So, you know, I didn't have a problem with that. But Eddie turned around when he was asked about and said that it's the first he's heard of it. He didn't watch it. So I think he did. But he says he didn't. And it was quickly moved on.
I think he'll take the England job as soon as it's offered him, if it's offered him. I've got no doubt about that in my mind. This current squad of England players are good enough to win things. And I think Eddie Howe would be foolish to turn it down.
Interesting. Listen, I know you've been talking about the England job for quite a while. I think it's something that Eddie just avoids talking about now, because he just wants to move on and talk about what he's there for right now. Clude says, for the first time this season, Howe looked comfortable and happy in his press conference.
I think there's a reason for that. And I think someone broke the protocol. I think the press were told not to ask about Mitchell. And only one person did. And he didn't really ask about him. He said, "Are you happy?" Because no
how nice is it? Yeah, yeah. But he then went on to say everything's fine and had a big smile on his face. He didn't kind of look like he was fobbing off the question. He just sort of said,
he got around it in that way, didn't he?
Yeah.
I think it was Lee Ryder, wasn't it? The kind of skirted around the issue to get the question asked.
I think Lee Ryder was just pulling his leg, though. I don't think Lee Ryder was asking a serious question. I think it was a bit of a joke between the two of them. I thought it was.
I think the press was told not to ask about the Paul Mitchell situation, and that's why he looked jovial.
Yeah. But he did look a lot more settled today. Actually,
yes,
he did look more comfortable. He's just leaning over the desk and talking in a way, didn't seem stressed out by any questions. Even Louise's questions today were okay. There was nothing wrong with the questions that Louise asked. In fact, there was no real wrong questions asked in that press conference that I gathered today. Just the one maybe about the Carragher-Neville thing, but I think that was legit because it's interesting to get Eddie's views on it. But obviously, he's not going to talk about when he's linked with England. He's just not going to go over that ground at all. Now, he went on to talk about Anthony Gordon, Billy, and he was asked about I think it was Jordan Cronin asked him about his body language last week at Fulham, and that a lot of fans were very concerned by that. And he said that Anthony was frustrated, like a lot of other players on the pitch, that things just weren't happening. And he said I was frustrated myself. So as a manager, I'm not surprised the players themselves were frustrated, because Anthony is very much focused, and his desire is still very, very focused in doing well for Newcastle United. And he wants him to sign. He was asked about the new contract as well. He says, obviously, he didn't really want to go into that because in case nothing happens with it, so he didn't want to talk about. But what he did say was he hopes he does sign a new contract. So I get the feeling, Billy, that if Gordon does sign a new contract, it's a weight off everybody's shoulders from what I gathered this morning.
Yeah, and the fact they're actually talking about it and discussing it in such an advanced stage, it sounds like, is a positive for me. And I expect to see a much more hands-on Anthony Gordon tomorrow, whether he's playing through the middle or whether he's playing out left, whether he's playing out right. I think we'll see a much more energetic Anthony Gordon. Yeah. And we need to see that, because if he doesn't, then we kind of... He's our biggest threat if he's actually not playing tomorrow.
Absolutely, he'd be pivotal. Yeah,
I know. Harvey Barnes been scoring the goals. I don't necessarily think he'll have that kind of freedom with Kyle Walker against him, I've got to say. Kyle Walker's got all the tricks to the trade.
It's a battle I'm looking forward to seeing, Billy, to be honest, because we've questioned Barnes last season.
I'd say he's one of the best right backs in the world. So Harvey Barnes to have a go at him, and if he does come out on top and score goals, then fantastic. But I think Anthony Gordon's our biggest threat.
But one thing about Kyle Walker, Billy, he can be prone to a lapse in concentration. If there's anyone at the moment good enough to bounce on that, it's Harvey. Mike says, hi, Paul, Billy, and the TTR family. Just to say, my wee sister passed away yesterday with terminal cancer, and my dad has broken his hip and is not keeping too well. But yous keep me going at this hard time. Mike, I'm so sorry to hear that, matey. She's out of her pain now. I guess, it's what everybody says, but she is. She's at peace now, and that probably won't bring you any comfort right now. But, we're all with you, mate. And thank you for the kind words saying we're keeping you going at the hard time. That's what we do try and do to whoever's going through a bad time at the minute. Give your love to your dad and tell him we're thinking of him. And our thoughts are with you and the family, Mike. So sorry to hear that, mate. Talking about Anthony Gordon again, Billy, he did say that, he can play through the middle, because when he was asked about Isak missing and how, Anthony Gordon, he did admit that they look at Gordon as the third striker. He actually said those words. He says, we see Anthony as the third striker because he can play that role. He can play the role in a very different way, but he can run the channels. He can cause problems with his pace. I just get the feeling that, Asula's not ready yet, or in Eddie's eyes is not ready to start a game in the Premier League for certain. And we're going to have to wait a bit of time to see Asula start. But he was very, very sort of praising of Anthony Gordon playing through the middle, and he doesn't seem to have a problem with it. And then he was asked about Barnes and Gordon both prefer to play on the left. And he said that's very difficult as well. But he's confident that both can play in the same team, whatever position they're in.
Yeah, and it was quite sudden, actually, that behind Callum Wilson and Alexander Isak, William Sula is not on that list at all. And that Anthony Gordon is the third choice. So, yeah, I think if Isak isn't playing too well, then we definitely can see Gordon through the middle. No doubt about that in my mind whatsoever. No doubt.
Steve says that 9 minutes ago, Romano agreement between Newcastle and Anthony Gordon, 5-year contract. Gordon will be among the club's highest earners.
Yeah, I'm just looking now about that. Just having a quick look.
I mean, he hasn't. I don't think he's confirmed it. I said I think it's expected, and I think that's what Eddie was trying to talk about this morning. Was that it's probably close, but he doesn't want to give any positivity on it in case it didn't happen.
Well, the tweet says agreement done between Newcastle and Anthony Gordon. New contract set to be signed soon. Understand it will be valid until June 2029. 5-year contract after the club rejected several approaches. Gordon will be in line with Newcastle United's highest earners with new contract ready.
Wow.
So there you go. So I mean, he's saying it's done, basically agreement. So
interesting. Well, there might be a new show recorded very soon, guys. So keep your eyes open for that. Let's have a look. What else did he say? He was asked about the intensity, Billy, and how that seems to have disappeared from the team. But he kind of defended that, saying that there hasn't been any shift in wanting the intensity within the side. He realizes that the levels have dropped, but he said the levels have dropped for many, many different reasons, and not necessarily the reasons that everybody is saying, i.e. players attitudes and things like that. He says they want to get back to that very, very quickly, but that is going to take time. It's drifted away, but he wants to. That intensity is something he swears by and wants the team to be back to that very, very soon.
Yeah, he kind of alluded to the international tournaments in the summer, didn't he? Players then coming back, then going back on international duty again.
Yeah,
that's kind of interrupted the intensity through fitness alone, really.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so to get the players back for a bigger period of time, then we're going to have another international break. So is it going to work? I don't know. But we need to see it. We need to see that intense. I think we see it better with Wilson inside anyway, I've got to say.
Yeah. Well, listen, I mean, as fans, we hope that intensity comes back, because when we play like that, we're pretty much untouchable. And we saw that in the Champions League qualification season. The majority of games, when we put on performances like that, teams find it very, very difficult, because you look at how Barcelona used to play, and no, I'm not comparing the two teams, don't get me wrong. I'm talking about the way they played. When you looked at Barcelona, they lose the ball, and then suddenly they're like rabid dogs trying to get it back. And they were very, very difficult to play against. One of the most difficult teams to play against in Europe was Barcelona, because of the way they played, with that intensity, that belief that they're going to get the ball straight back. And we played with that kind of similar attitude, and Eddie definitely wants to bring it back. So for me as a fan, I just can't wait. I can't wait to see us play that kind of football again.
Become kind of used to that, though. I mean, even the first game of the season against the promoted club, Southampton.
Yeah,
I mean, when we was at our highest intensity back 2 seasons ago, they would have been alive to it. Mm-hmm. They played round it pretty easily, I thought, and it's. This intensity press it's got to be more intense to get the results we wanted, even more so than what we had in the first place. So I think it's going to be hard for us to achieve, I'll be honest.
He's, but like you said, he's always tweaking the system, whether we can see it or not. He believes in what he's doing. Now, he was asked about Bruno as well, Billy, because obviously Bruno, we know, has not been at it this season. And we've been speculating, is it the captaincy that's maybe affected his mindset in a game, that he's got too much on his shoulders and he's worried about doing X, Y, and Z in case it affects his game. He said that the problem has been with Bruno is that obviously he arrived back late from summer tournaments, and they haven't had much time to focus on one-to-one with him. Because the season starts and then he's away on international duty again, and you can really understand that, because again he's going back to the international situation, and the players are going all over the world, playing 3 Premier League games and then disappearing for an international break again. I think a lot of people, and managers included, are getting a little bit fed up with that shit. too many international breaks, because it just causes problems and they can't focus. And then they're coming back literally 2 days or a day and a half before they're expected to go into the Premier League game again. So I can understand where he's coming from with Bruno. But I definitely think that Bruno has been affected by comments from South America that, he's taken a lot on his shoulders for the Brazil performances.
Yeah, and I think the Brazilian performances stemmed from the fact he didn't have a rest for the last 6 months of our season either.
Yeah.
So it's kind of working into the Brazil. It wasn't as good for Brazil as what he has been in the past. When we saw him against England at Wembley, he was outstanding.
Yeah.
But in that tournament in the summer, he was dreadful, really. He's come back from that, no rest, and he hasn't been great for us this season. So unless he gets a sustained period of rest, which isn't going to happen unless he gets himself injured.
Well, not at the moment, isn't it?
When does he come back to his best? Hopefully tomorrow will that kind of game, which is a big game, and it will get the meat between his teeth to have a go at him. But yeah,
I mean, David Cook makes the point as well that Bruno's such a family man, and he suspects that being away will have impacted on him too.
Maybe.
I don't disagree with that. It can't be easy. Morgan Ashton, who's been a member for 13 months, thank you for your support, Morgan. I'm still thinking 4-1 to us. Morgan, have you been smoking something this morning, or has your Weetabix had a special ingredient?
I admire the optimism, I've got to say.
I love it. Hey, listen, if it's 4-1 to us, we'll be all bouncing around tomorrow. There's no doubt about that. But I don't like these 12:30 kickoffs, Billy. I have to say, I hate them. I hate 12:30 kickoffs because, you're out there warming up at 10 to midday on a Saturday morning. I mean, it throws you off a little bit. But listen, the professionals, and it's the same for both sides. At the end of the day, they've got to get on with it. We haven't necessarily had fantastic performances at 12:30 kickoffs, but let's just hope that things go in our favour. Finally, Billy was asked about if European football is in his head, and I guess this has come off the back of those media reports earlier on in the week that were suggesting that Eddie needs to qualify for Europe. That is what's been set out by the board this season. He's got to finish in a European spot. But he deflected that away quite well. He just says he's not thinking about European football at the moment. And I don't suppose he is, because we're only, 4 or 5 games into the season. Why the hell should he? He said his thoughts are right now, the here and now, the game tomorrow, the game, the next game, and then, see where we end up. But, I think managers start looking at Europe probably, from after Christmas onwards, don't they, in the run-in?
Yeah, I guess he's got no interest in it. In fact, we're not in it. Why would he? To want to watch European? I bet he watches it still.
Of course,
I bet he's not thinking this should be us. It really should be, really. But like you say, I think towards January, February time, when we know where we are on the table and we want to be aiming for Europe. Yeah, it's something that they'll concentrate on later in the season. But at the minute, absolutely not.
Yeah. Hippie says early kickoff means it's a reasonable time here in Sydney. It's a 9:30 p.m. for a change instead of 2 a.m. Yeah, it'll absolutely be great for you guys. So Billy F says, was Bruno's captaincy mentioned? No. He never spoke about the cap, and he won't speak about the captaincy because he genuinely believes, I think, Eddie Howe, Billy, that we have a captaincy group, and that's the way it should be. And Bruno is the captain, but we have captains all over the pitch in theory.
Yeah, he's the public face because he's got the armband on. But like you say, the Burns, the Trippiers, the Joe Lintons, etc. There's a leadership group who all continue with this mantra of pushing the team. But the armband hasn't really suited Bruno. I thought he's played well in patches, but not for a consistent while in a game. And I'm hoping we can see that tomorrow, to be honest.
Definitely. Well, that's it. That was what was discussed. I thought it was a very positive press conference this morning. Let's see what his post-match press conferences is like. Hopefully we'll be celebrating a win. You just never know. But I thought there was some, today's press conference to me was better. There was better questions asked. There was more positivity around the room. Eddie looked relaxed and comfortable, which is always good when you see a manager like that, rather than looking tense and worried about things. Obviously, Eddie won't show that if there is any sort of major worries that he's got. But I think, no, Rich, nothing was asked about Trippier. I think we like press conferences like that because I think we get more out of Eddie if the right questions are asked as well. You know, if they're firing crappy questions at him, he's just going to deflect them back. But when they're about football and about the game, and you know, he will go into it. You know, he spoke well about the Fulham game, I thought, and he spoke well about the game tomorrow.
Yeah, it was a jovial atmosphere as well. I thought he was in a good mood, Eddie, and I think that's what I was thinking. Maybe that they'd kind of been warned not to ask about the political situation. But yeah, jovial press conference. Good questions asked for change. Those formation, tactic questions. The right players were asked about. Yeah, one of the best press conferences we've had for a while, actually.
Yeah, absolutely. So there you go, guys. That is it. We are back tonight at 7 o'clock. Don't forget, TTR Friday, Stroke Fan Forum. The best way for you guys to start your weekend with a good laugh. Who will Billy have his beef with this week? Will we have any debutantes on the fan forum? Be nice to see some new faces. Remember, you don't need a camera. If you don't want to come on camera, you can just use your microphone and chat to us that way, like the old style phone-ins used to be. But thank you very much for watching. Give it a like if you've enjoyed it, and of course, subscribe if you're new. Please keep voting for us. Football Content Awards. It's pinned at the top of the description. Keep going back and voting, guys. We need you more than ever. But thank you very much for your memberships, super chats. Mods, thank you. And Billy, thank you. And a massive thank you to you guys out there for tuning in so early on a Friday morning. Well over 700 across both platforms. That's brilliant figures for an 11 o'clock show. And we will see you tonight at 7. But in the meantime, have a fantastic day, folks. See you soon.
How are the lads and lasses?
Come back and check out some green.